This is a lecture of one of your assigned poems for this week. It's a poem called Cat Skinner, and it is by Rebecca Fredrickson. So there are objectives to this lecture, the poem, and I will read it because it's just me here. It's not like I can ask you guys to read it. Um, Also, I will go over some technical aspects of the poem. I'm not going to go over the whole poem and its technical aspects, but I'm going to go over a few things just to kind of get you seeing them. And also, of course, the character studied in the poem, the cat Skinner. So the poem is called Cat Skinner. His old injuries impressed me most. Broken ribs, crushed vertebrae, tuberculosis, pain left unnamed, until last winter, when he went in with a backache and the x-rays came out like tree rings, marking years he spent in the bush. Winters and rig sites of North Boundary Lake or Fort Nelson, places I pictured full of candy shops. His visits flooded the house with diesel smell, made me hide behind my bed, for him to come in with sweet tarts and mojos. We played a game where Mum would chase me around the front room wearing a sticky mask of dippity-doo, glossy pink distortion of her face. And it was him I ran to as home free. Cat skinning at 17, 1953. He drove a DC-10. Cleared brush and frozen ground for an oil lease just west of Rainbow Lake. 40 below his first blast of the cat's thunderous purr and clink. Lunch behind the gears on a hard seat. Hands too cold to hold a sandwich, he threw it down to the baking coyotes, drank black thermos coffee instead. That year the foreman took his photo in a field of snow. Thick chest, blonde, brush cut, thumbs hooked in his belt loops, one leg out and toe of his boot pointing to the sky. So again, I'm just going to go over a few of the many technical aspects of the poem. So right away, I want to point out, just in the first few lines, all of the technical work that has gone into this. Notice the use of the S's. His old injuries impress. That is amazing. His old injuries impress me most. So like if you just pause for a moment and hear just even the S's. His old injuries impress me most. Broken ribs, crushed vertebrae, tuberculosis. So you're really like, but it goes on, like just like the S's on their own. And then the O sound. His old injuries impressed me most. Broken ribs, crushed vertebrae, tuberculosis. So that is not as strong as the S's, but it is there. And then that hard E sound. His old injuries impressed me most. Um, so there's like all this work with sound that's in there, and as well as internal and internal rhyme that we're seeing. Impress, ribs, tuberculosis, pain, unnamed. So there's all this kind of like really technical work that has gone into this poem, as well as enjambment, where he's spent in the bush, and then that full stop, and then winters and rig sites of North Boundary Lake or Fort Nelson. So the poet actually kind of makes us sort of trot along. So here, I'm not sure where to begin. And the x-rays came out like tree rings. This comma here makes us stop. So we actually pause, and the x-rays came out like tree rings, marking years he spent in the bush. But here we're forced to keep going. Even though there's a stanza break, there's like a push, a trotting, a tugging. And then we have the full stop. And then again, there's an enjambment where we're pushed to keep going until we run into that comma. And so there's this really kind of trotting essence and like stops and starts, so that you're seeing a lot of work here, that colon, commas, the caesura here between the crushed vertebrae that makes you pause. So just so much work has gone into the technical aspects of this. And I think some of that can often be natural. I think sometimes people are drawn to poetry because they like the sound of language. So I think some of it can be natural, but this is technical skills that anyone can learn and can learn to use. Of course, this poem is a character study. It is about a cat skinner. Of course, it's about a family. It appears to be a mother and a father and one child. I'm assuming the child's a girl, though I shouldn't do that, but I'm doing it based on the author's name. But I, of course, will refer to um, the main character of the poem as the speaker of the poem or the narrator. So the narrator or the speaker of the poem is telling us all they know about this cat skinner. And so, like, if you just think about everything that we discover, initially we're kind of guided through his body and how it is ravaged, and not only just ravaged by time and age, but by hard work. And we find out that he started working very hard at the age of 17. We find out where he was working, what kind of work he was doing. We find out all these really tangible things, about like how he couldn't eat his sandwich because it was frozen. We find out that, for lunch, all he had was that thermos of black coffee. We find out how he comes home smelling of diesel and that he's carrying candy for his child. So we just discover so much information, rich, evocative, sensory rich information about this cat skinner, this person. So I would suggest, like, you when you're reading the poems that you're assigned, think about like how they're working. Of course, think about these technical aspects and how you can incorporate them, but also what do we discover about his relationship with the speaker of the poem? What do we imagine his marriage is like? Do we know? What kind of information are we given? What does the ending of the poem do to your senses and your sense of him? So these are kind of like notes and questions that you should be thinking about and writing and taking notes and thinking about your own assignment, that assignment of a character study, and who are you going to study, and how do you want to write about them, and what technical aspects is it? Are you going to use a singing poem or a talking poem, or do you want to rely on punctuation and enjambment and rich sound? And so these are things that you should be thinking about and considering as you move forward. Um, Thank you very much. I will, of course, post um, little movie PowerPoints with lectures over them for the other poems for this week. I do apologize that I didn't get them up earlier. If you watched the welcome post, and I'm sure you can tell, I'm sick. My son and I have been sick for over a week, and so we've been self-isolating other than getting COVID-19 tests done. So if you would just bear with me until I get better, I would really appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you very much. Bye.